There is a particular kind of tiredness that sleep does not touch, a fatigue that lingers even in still rooms, even when the body lies down. It lives beneath the muscles, beneath the breath. Not loud, not dramatic, just constant. These are people who know rest in theory, but not in feeling. They move through days with a quiet heaviness, carrying an exhaustion that has no clear cause and no clear cure. They are not always overworked, they are not always busy, yet their nervous system remains awake, alert, braced for something unnamed. This tiredness is not a failure of discipline or resilience. It is often a memory, a pattern learned slowly, invisibly, over time. And understanding it requires looking beyond sleep, into safety, expectation, and the body's relationship with stillness.
It explores how this exhaustion feels internally, subtle, invisible, and often misunderstood. The focus is on emotional validation and recognition, naming a fatigue that exists beyond physical effort. There are people who wake already tired, not in the way that comes from a short night or a long day, but in a deeper way, as if rest never fully arrived. Their bodies move through routine motions, familiar paths. They eat, they work, they speak, they respond. From the outside, nothing appears unusual, but beneath these movements is a persistent drain, a quiet depletion that does not announce itself. This kind of exhaustion does not collapse the body, it hums, a low, continuous frequency of weariness that follows them through every moment. It does not demand attention, it simply stays. They often struggle to explain it. Words like burnout or stress feel too sharp, too temporary. This tiredness feels older than the week, older than the job, older than the current season of life. It feels woven into the background of being awake. Rest, when it appears, feels incomplete. Sleep ends, but the heaviness remains. Stillness arrives, but the body does not soften into it. The mind stays slightly alert, slightly braced, as if something important might be missed if vigilance loosens. This exhaustion carries no clear narrative. There is no single event to point to, no dramatic moment where everything became too much. Instead, it exists as a quiet accumulation, a series of small tensions never fully released. People experiencing this often question themselves. They wonder if they are simply weak, if they lack discipline, if they are doing something wrong. But this tiredness is not laziness. It is not a lack of ambition or motivation. It is the fatigue of a system that has been working without pause, often without acknowledgement. Even moments meant for recovery feel strangely effortful. Lying down does not equal rest. Free time does not bring relief. There is a subtle discomfort in slowing, as though stillness exposes something unsteady beneath the surface. They may feel restless in calm environments. Silence can feel loud. Unstructured time can create unease rather than ease. The body searches for something to respond to, something to manage. This leads many to stay busy, not always out of desire, but out of necessity. Movement becomes a form of regulation. Distraction becomes a way to remain functional. Busyness offers a familiar rhythm, even when it deepens exhaustion. Yet even in motion, the tiredness persists. It does not lift with productivity. It does not disappear with achievement. It waits patiently, present in every pause. This form of fatigue often remains invisible to others because it does not look like collapse. It looks like competence, like someone who keeps going. And because it is invisible, it often goes unspoken. There is a quiet loneliness in being tired in a way that cannot be easily explained or socially recognized. No clear reason to justify the need for rest.
no visible wound to point to. This exhaustion lives in the nervous system, not just the muscles. It is carried in breath but never fully deepens, in shoulders that rarely drop, in a jaw that remains gently clenched even in sleep. The body in these moments is not asking for sleep alone. It is asking for safety, for permission, for a moment where nothing is required and nothing is expected. But for those who are tired and cannot rest, expectation often lingers even in solitude. A sense of readiness remains, quiet but constant, as if something might need attention at any moment. This chapter is not about solving that exhaustion. It is about recognizing it, naming it without judgment, understanding that this tiredness is not a failure, but a message, a signal from a system that learned, somewhere along the way, that resting fully was not always safe. And before rest can return, that truth must be seen.
It examines how growing up with unpredictability, emotional responsibility, or pressure teaches the nervous system to stay alert. Rest becomes associated with vulnerability rather than safety. Long before exhaustion had a name, it had a context. Not a single moment, but a climate, an atmosphere the body learned to live inside. For many who are tired but cannot rest, the beginning was not dramatic. It did not arrive with chaos loud enough to remember clearly. It arrived quietly, through patterns that repeated often enough to feel normal. In some homes, rest was conditional. It was allowed only after everything was finished, only after everyone else was settled, only after the emotional temperature of the room felt stable. The body learned early that stillness required monitoring, that calm could shift without warning, that safety was something to maintain, not something to assume. For others, responsibility arrived too soon. Emotional awareness developed early, not as a gift, but as a necessity. They learned to read moods before reading words, to anticipate needs before being asked, to stay alert because someone else depended on it. Rest in these environments became associated with risk. When attention softened, something important might be missed. When vigilance dropped, consequences followed. So the body adapted. It learned to remain lightly awake even during moments meant for recovery, a form of readiness that never fully turned off. Not because danger was constant, but because unpredictability was. Some grew up praised for being mature, responsible, dependable. They were told they handled things well, that they were strong, that they did not need much. What was not named was the cost of that strength, the way it trained the nervous system to stay engaged long after the moment passed, the way it taught the body that rest was something earned, not something inherent. In other cases, pressure came from expectation rather than instability. Achievement became the language of safety. Doing well meant belonging. Slowing down meant falling behind. The body absorbed these messages without conscious thought. It learned to equate rest with guilt, stillness with wasted potential, quiet with unproductiveness. Even environments that appeared supportive could leave this imprint, because pressure does not require cruelty to be effective. It only requires consistency. Over time, these early conditions shaped how the nervous system responded to calm. Silence was not neutral. Unstructured time was not empty. They were spaces where vigilance had nowhere to go. So the body stayed active, scanning, preparing, holding tension as a form of protection. This is why many people feel more comfortable when busy, even when exhausted. Movement feels familiar. Demand feels grounding. Rest feels unfamiliar, almost foreign. It is not that they never learned how to rest, it is that they learned something else first. They learned to stay ready. And what the body learns early, it remembers deeply, long after the original environment has changed, long after the external demands have softened. This memory does not live in thought, it lives in sensation, in the subtle tightening when nothing is happening, in the discomfort that appears when there is nothing to respond to. The adult mind may understand that it is safe now, that nothing urgent is waiting, that rest is allowed. But the nervous system does not respond to logic alone. It responds to what it learned through repetition. This is why telling oneself to relax rarely works. why rest cannot be forced, why exhaustion persists even when life appears manageable. The body is not resisting rest out of stubbornness, it is honoring an old contract. Stay alert, stay prepared, stay available. Understanding this origin changes the narrative. It moves exhaustion out of the realm of personal failure. It reframes it as adaptation, a response that once made sense, a strategy that once kept things stable. And before that strategy can soften, it must be respected, seen not as a flaw, but as history living inside the body.
This section offers a scientific and psychological explanation of why rest feels inaccessible. It explores hypervigilance, stress hormones, and the body's survival responses. The chapter bridges neuroscience with lived experience, showing how the body learns to remain on. To understand why rest feels unreachable, it helps to look beneath thought, into the language of the nervous system. The human body is designed for rhythm: activation followed by release, alertness followed by rest. This cycle allows energy to return, tissues to soften, breath to deepen. But when early environments require prolonged alertness, this rhythm changes. The nervous system adapts, not by choice, but by necessity. At the center of this adaptation is a state known as hypervigilance, a condition where the body remains subtly activated, even in the absence of immediate threat. Not panicked, not overwhelmed, simply unable to fully stand down. Stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline become familiar companions. They sharpen attention, they increase responsiveness, they prepare the body to handle what might happen next. In the short term, this response is protective. It keeps someone functional in demanding conditions. It allows them to anticipate, manage, and endure. But when this state becomes chronic, the body forgets how to return to baseline. The nervous system stays slightly elevated, even during moments meant for recovery, even during sleep. This is why people can sleep for hours and still wake exhausted. The body never truly entered a restorative state. Muscles may have rested, but the system remained alert. From the outside, nothing looks wrong. Heart rate appears normal, breathing seems steady, but inside, the body is still scanning. This scanning does not always involve conscious worry. Often the mind feels quiet, thoughts slow, yet the body remains ready. This creates a confusing dissonance. A person may believe they are relaxed, but their physiology disagrees. The nervous system continues to operate as though something requires attention. Hypervigilance also alters the way the body experiences stillness. When movement stops, activation has nowhere to go. This can create discomfort, restlessness, or subtle anxiety. Stillness becomes unfamiliar terrain. Without external demands, the body notices its own tension more clearly. The quiet becomes too loud. This is not imagination, it is a biological response shaped by experience. Over time, the nervous system associates rest with uncertainty. Without a task to regulate energy, the body does not know where to place its alertness, so it holds it. This state also affects the breath. Breathing becomes shallow, efficient, functional, rarely deep enough to signal safety, rarely slow enough to cue relaxation. Sleep, in this context, becomes a partial shutdown rather than full restoration. Dreams may be vivid, the body may shift often, awakenings may feel abrupt, and even during waking hours, the body conserves energy by staying tense. Muscles hold readiness. Posture reflects subtle guarding. This constant low-level activation is exhausting, not because it demands effort, but because it never ends. The body does not receive the signal that it is allowed to stop monitoring. Importantly, this response is not pathological by default. It is intelligent. It is the body doing what it learned to do well. The nervous system is not broken, it is trained. And training does not disappear simply because circumstances change. It persists until the body experiences something new, a different rhythm repeated enough times to be trusted. Understanding this shifts the focus. The question is no longer, why can't this person rest, but rather,
What taught their body that rest was unsafe? The tiredness that follows is not a mystery. It is the cost of being prepared for too long. A nervous system that never fully learned how to power down will continue to run, quietly, constantly, until it is shown another way to exist.
It examines why silence, rest, or idleness can trigger anxiety, guilt, or restlessness. The body resists rest, not out of stubbornness, but conditioning. For those who are tired but cannot rest, stillness is not neutral, it is charged. When the world quiets, something inside tightens, not sharply, subtly, a faint sense that something is wrong, even when nothing is happening. This resistance to stillness often surprises people. They expect rest to feel relieving. They imagine calm as softness. Instead, they feel restless, uneasy, exposed. The body begins to search for stimulation, a screen, a task, a reason to move. Silence can feel intrusive. Unstructured time can feel disorienting. Without demands, the nervous system has no familiar anchor. This is where many people misunderstand themselves. They assume they are impatient, unfocused, bad at relaxing. But the discomfort is not a personality trait. It is a learned response. For a nervous system shaped by alertness, stillness removes the structure that once kept things predictable. When nothing is required, the body does not automatically relax. It waits. In these moments, internal sensations become louder. Breath feels shallow, the chest feels tight. Thoughts may drift, but the body remains watchful. Sometimes guilt appears, a quiet voice suggesting that rest must be justified, that stopping requires permission, that productivity is the measure of worth. This guilt does not come from nowhere. It reflects years of internalized expectation, messages absorbed early and reinforced often. Be useful, be available, do not take up space without purpose. So when rest arrives without a reason, it feels undeserved. The body resists not because it prefers exhaustion, but because rest contradicts what it learned about safety and value. In other cases, stillness brings emotion. Feelings long held at a distance begin to surface: grief, anger, loneliness. Busyness once acted as a buffer, a way to keep emotional depth manageable. When movement stops, that buffer dissolves. The nervous system senses this exposure and responds by reactivating, not to avoid feeling, but to protect. This is why some people feel more tired when they slow down, because the body interprets rest as a loss of control, a moment where internal material might emerge without containment. So they return to motion, to tasks, to noise, not because they want to, but because it restores a sense of stability. This creates a painful cycle. Exhaustion builds, rest is attempted, discomfort rises, activity resumes. Each attempt at stillness reinforces the belief that rest is unsafe, that slowing down leads to unease rather than relief. But this resistance is not defiance, it is protection. The body is not rejecting rest, it is guarding against vulnerability. Understanding this changes how exhaustion is interpreted. It is no longer seen as a failure to relax, but as a sign of a system that has not yet learned how to feel secure without doing. Stillness asks a quiet question of the nervous system: is it safe to stop? For some bodies, the answer has been no for a very long time. And until that answer begins to soften, rest will remain difficult, not because it is unwanted, but because it feels unfamiliar. This chapter does not ask for stillness to be forced. It simply names the resistance with compassion. Because what resists rest is often the same part that once ensured survival. And that part deserves understanding, not pressure. Awareness begins not with fixing, but with understanding. There comes a moment, often quietly, when the narrative shifts, not because the tiredness disappears, but because it is finally seen. For a long time, exhaustion was interpreted as something to overcome, a lack of discipline, a personal shortcoming, something to push through, manage better, optimize. This interpretation carried weight. It added shame to fatigue, pressure to depletion. But recognition changes the texture of tiredness. It introduces space where judgment once lived. This moment does not arrive through sudden insight or dramatic realization. It often comes slowly, through repetition, through noticing that rest does not restore, that effort does not resolve what effort created. At some point, the question shifts from "why am I so tired?" to "what is my body trying to say?" This shift is subtle but profound. It moves the focus from self-correction to self-observation, from blame to curiosity. In recognition, exhaustion is no longer an enemy. It becomes information, a signal that something deeper is asking for attention. This does not mean understanding everything at once. It simply means allowing the tiredness to exist without immediate resistance. Many experience this recognition during moments of contrast, seeing others rest easily, noticing how certain environments feel more draining than others, observing how the body remains alert even when the mind feels calm. These observations begin to form a pattern, a realization that the tiredness is not random, it has logic, history. And with this understanding comes a gentle grief. Grief for how long the body has been holding itself together, for how early it learned to stay awake, for how little rest it truly received. This grief does not overwhelm, it settles quietly, a soft acknowledgement of cost. Recognition also introduces patience, an understanding that this exhaustion was not created overnight and will not dissolve quickly. There is a humility in this moment, an acceptance that rest cannot be forced by willpower alone, that healing, if it comes, will arrive gradually. Importantly, recognition does not demand change. It does not instruct the body to relax. It does not insist on improvement. It simply allows tiredness to be seen without interpretation. This alone can soften something, because for a system accustomed to being evaluated, being witnessed without correction is unfamiliar. Recognition tells the body, you are not failing, you are responding. And in this understanding, pressure loosens slightly. Not enough to erase exhaustion, but enough to reduce its weight. This is not resolution, it is orientation, a turning toward the body rather than away from it, a willingness to listen instead of override. The moment of recognition does not fix the inability to rest, but it changes the relationship to it. And sometimes, that shift is the beginning of something quieter and deeper than change. It is the beginning of trust. It looks at how safety, permission, and patience allow rest to slowly re-enter the body. Rest becomes an emotional experience, not just a physical state. Rest does not return through instruction. It does not arrive because the body is told it is safe. For those who have lived alert for too long, rest must be experienced, not explained. Learning a new relationship with rest begins subtly, not with stillness, but with permission, not with silence, but with gentleness. For a nervous system trained to stay awake, even small moments of softness matter. Moments where nothing is required, where presence is enough. This is not about doing less, it is about being met differently. Safety for the body is not a concept, it is a sensation, a felt sense that nothing is expected and nothing will be taken. These sensations often appear in ordinary places, in a chair that supports without demand, in a room where no one is watching, in a rhythm that does not rush. Rest begins to return when the body experiences these moments repeatedly, not dramatically, gradually. At first, the nervous system may resist. Stillness may still feel uncomfortable. The urge to move may arise quickly. This is not failure, it is memory surfacing. The body checks whether this quiet will last, whether it will be interrupted, whether something will be required again. So rest comes in fragments, brief exhalations, moments where the shoulders drop for a second, then rise again. Over time, these moments string together, not into perfect calm, but into familiarity. The body begins to recognize that rest does not always lead to consequence, that slowing does not always result in loss, that nothing terrible happens when vigilance softens. This learning cannot be rushed, because trust does not respond to urgency. The nervous system listens to consistency, to repetition without pressure. Importantly, this new relationship with rest does not demand emotional excavation. It does not require revisiting everything that caused the tiredness. It simply allows the body to experience something different in the present. Rest becomes less about absence of activity and more about presence of safety. Even active moments can carry rest when the body is not braced. Walking without scanning, breathing without effort, being without anticipation. This is why some people feel more rested after gentle connection than after sleep, because connection, when safe, signals the body to soften. Healing, in this sense, is not a project, it is an allowance for rest to be imperfect, for tiredness to remain without urgency to eliminate it, for the body to lead the pace. Over time, the definition of rest changes. It is no longer a reward at the end of productivity. It becomes a background condition, something woven into moments rather than reserved for rare occasions. This does not mean exhaustion disappears completely, but it becomes less absolute, less constant. The nervous system begins to learn that it can power down without being abandoned, that safety does not require effort, that stillness can exist without threat. This is not a dramatic transformation. It is quiet, often unnoticed, until one day rest feels slightly more accessible than before. And that small shift matters, because it signals that the body is beginning to trust the present. The documentary ends not with resolution, but with softness and understanding. Stillness is not a destination. It is not a checkbox, a reward, or a state to achieve. It is a subtle rhythm, an ongoing dialogue between body and world. For those who have been tired without rest, it is a language that must be relearned slowly. A different kind of stillness emerges not from forcing calm, but from being witnessed by oneself, by quiet, by the gentle insistence of safety. It feels like a breath that deepens without effort, a moment where muscles release their guard, a space where thought can wander without judgment. This stillness is not perfect. It is not absence of sensation or worry. It is presence with what is, a tender coexistence with the body's history and its ongoing experience. It manifests in small ways, in the way hands rest lightly on a table, in the way the chest softens during a pause, in the way the mind notices the quiet without immediately filling it. Here, rest is not separate from life, it is embedded within it, a gentle current beneath the surface of everyday movement. Moments of stillness may appear during a walk, a shared glance, or a single deep inhale. This chapter of rest does not erase fatigue. It acknowledges its presence and makes space for it. Exhaustion is no longer a fault, it is a companion, understood, observed, and respected. A different kind of stillness carries empathy for the body, for the mind, for the history that shaped them both. It is restorative not because it demands change, but because it allows being. And in this stillness, there is a quiet awakening, a realization that rest is not about achieving calm, but about feeling safe enough to experience it. That softening is not surrender, but recognition. That letting go is not weakness, but trust. In learning to rest this way, the tired person begins to live with the body rather than against it. The rhythm of vigilance eases into the rhythm of life. Breathing, motion, and pause find a gentle balance. Ultimately, this stillness is poetic, not in grand gestures, but in subtle, lived experience. It teaches that rest is not an escape from the world, but a return to oneself, a quiet homecoming. And so the story of those who were tired but cannot rest does not end with resolution. It ends with observation, with acceptance, with the slow, deliberate recognition that rest, like understanding, arrives in its own time. Here, in this soft space, exhaustion may remain, but it no longer dominates. The body can pause, the mind can wander, the self can exist without constant expectation. This is the kind of stillness that matters. Not loud, not earned, not dramatic. Just present, just allowed, just human.